We have some other Twinmotion webinars coming up. Of course, the Building Custom Libraries is today, but live at AU, if you're attending, it is online and AU is free this year. We will have the reality capture and visualizer project with Twinmotion. So we're going to be covering some like a reality capture technologies as well as the Twinmotion visualization platform on November 19th. And you can register for that in the Imagine It online booth at Autodesk University. We also have media and presentations on December 2nd, and then Viewer's Choice on January 20th. So Viewer's Choice is all about what you want to see. So I have a poll that I'm going to launch in just a few minutes, but you can also go to this link and take the survey. The survey does allow you to add in other options for topics that might not be listed on this poll. So if you have something we haven't thought of, you could fill that in there. And we'll also send that link out with the follow-up. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and launch this poll. So it looks like we're already starting to see some responses. And what we're going to do with this particular webinar is based on the responses that we get and the topics that you want to see, we'll cover all of those in the Viewer's Choice on January 22nd. Registration is open for that, so if you go to the Imagine It events page, you can register. Okay, it looks like we've got almost everybody completing. Still got a couple more votes coming in. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. And again, if you still want to vote, you can always take the survey that we have also. So thanks again for participating. And with that, I will turn it over to Vince. So give me 1 second while I make you the presenter, Vince.
Okay.
All right, you're all set.
Awesome. Let's do this. This one, is it sharing my screen?
I see a statue.
Okay, cool.
A statue on a table.
I've got dual monitors and it didn't ask me to pick which screen, so I just want to make sure I'm not sharing my other one with our chat window and stuff open.
Right.
So,
Nope, you're good.
All righty. Well, welcome everyone to this Twinmotion session. My name is Vince Daniele, and I'm going to show you how we can use Twinmotion to create custom libraries. So this one really didn't take that long, and it's a pretty easy process of creating objects for your custom libraries, and I'll show you how to do so and maybe some of the technical stuff where those libraries are pathed to. But the file that I currently have open right now, some nice little cabin scene, and the little statue, the bust of the woman here, the statue, is a custom object that is not available in our out-of-the-box content from Twinmotion. It's one that I brought in from the web and assigned a material to, and I can store this or save it now in a custom library. So first off, in Twinmotion, one huge advantage of Twinmotion is that we have this capability of creating custom libraries. So from the kind of the library palette in Twinmotion, you might have noticed if you've ever opened it up before, there is this little folder called User Library. And if I click on that, it brings open some subfolders within that library. Well, by default, if you look at this for the first time, it will be blank. So obviously I have some predefined ones here that I created. But in order to create your user library or add to it, it's really, really simple. You can click the plus sign here to create new folders. So I'll click that and create a folder, rename it, Twinmotion Prezzo folder there. And then we can start dumping different assets and materials or whatever it is into these folders. Before I get into how to actually do that, I will point out that through our preferences in Twinmotion, these custom paths, this is where our user library folder is stored. So as you start adding assets and folders inside of Twinmotion, basically what it's doing is it's building up a little library to wherever you want this to be. And I think by default, it goes to some Twinmotion install folder, but I have this routed to my Dropbox. I like to point this out because a lot of our customers that are buying Twinmotion, you have multiple users using the program, and chances are you want to share these libraries amongst your office. And we've tested this out internally because I have people on my team that are also doing a lot of Twinmotion training and demonstrations. And we want to kind of share our asset libraries with each other. Using Dropbox, which our company uses Dropbox as our cloud storage, I have it synced to my local computer, but you could absolutely put your libraries to a cloud or even to maybe a local network drive and share the content amongst all of the people that are using Twinmotion. So it's as simple as just browsing to that location and dropping it in there. So you can see I just created this Twinmotion Prezo folder and it puts it into this spot, which is on my Dropbox file or Dropbox drive. Okay, so you can route that to wherever you want, and as people add to it, it's just building that library for everyone simultaneously. So pretty cool. Anyway, so first off, really simple. I did import this in as an FBX file. I assigned a material. So just really quick to create this or to add it to my library from the scene graph, you just search or browse to the asset that you've imported or loaded in, right click over it, add that to your user library. Sometimes it takes a minute. And once it's finished, you can see that there's a preview of that object right there in that screen for our user library. So then you can drag this and put it into one of these folders. I have seen, and I'm not sure exactly how this works, but if I do have this folder open at the time when you add it to the library, I believe it will go into this folder. But if it doesn't, if it just goes to kind of the root user library, you can just click and drag and drop them into your folders. And also with custom content, we can add materials. So another process would be maybe you take a little bit of time and configure, scale, bring in images to create certain materials that you plan on using over and over again in projects. Well, out of the box with Twinmotion, we do have material libraries, but they're limited to what we see here. So if we want to build our own libraries of materials and add them, you can do that as well and keep those stored in your user library. To add materials, kind of the same process, except instead of using the scene graph, what we can do is pick the material that we've configured in the scene. It should show up a preview here in the bottom tool palette, and you just right click over it and add to your user library. And just like with the 3D asset, it might take it a second. So I'll just wait for that to catch up. All right, and back up to my user library, we can see the material I just added, drag and drop that to the material folder. So managing the library is quite simple, and adding objects that we've already imported in is pretty basic, pretty simple. And there's all different ways, if you think about it, with Twinmotion projects. We might build up a project in SketchUp or Revit and import that into Twinmotion with all of its assets. If there's a really good asset from Revit that you want to use in the future in Twinmotion, or something from SketchUp that you already have in your SketchUp model, you can pick and choose those items from those models and add them to your libraries. So no problem there whatsoever. What I want to show you here is kind of with your Twinmotion license, you also get access to the Megascans library. So if you've joined us on any of our previous webinars, I might have alluded to or shown, I think with the materials one, I've shown this But this Quixel Megascans library is, let me go to the home page here. Sorry. So this Quixel Megascans library is a nice little repository for all different types of visualization related content. And it has content from 3D assets to materials that we can download. And again, with Twinmotion or with your Epic username, you get access to all of this stuff as just an added benefit of being a user of the software. So you don't have to pay an additional fee for any of this. There are, let me see here, I think there's like, yeah, close to 4,000 different assets. So that does include 3D assets and materials like I mentioned, and you can search here. They are, from what I've seen, they are updating this library with more and more architecturally focused content. So now that Epic has purchased, or when they purchased Twinmotion and they're doing a lot to develop it, they understand that their customer base is growing outside of just gaming developers and cinema customers to more of the architectural crowd. So they are adding more and more ArcViz specific content here, I've noticed recently. Anyways, so we can browse content, and when you browse the content, Lisa talked to me earlier this week and she said, yeah, you know, the webinar's on Friday the 13th, so it'd be funny to put a Jason mask or something as an example. Well, as you can see, I searched for it and there is no Jason mask, so unfortunately wasn't able to do that through Megascans at least. I'm sure somewhere online we can download an FBX file of Jason hockey mask, but what I thought, hey, you know what? I'm watching the Masters this weekend, probably not doing much else. So let's search for some flowers or azaleas. And they had one similar. So when I opened up this web browser, you probably saw the flower showing. I already downloaded that, so I didn't want to take time during the presentation for it to download. But basically, when you download these 3D assets, if I wanted to take this fireplace or one of these components, for example, when you download them from the Quixel Megascans library, not only does it give you the 3D content, but it gives you all of the materials that go along with that object. So when you download, it gives you a nice little, there you go, a nice little zip file. So this one's quite large, 349 megabytes. So I'll probably cancel that one. But I've already pre-downloaded that plant that was on my screen initially. So I'm going to show you, once you've downloaded the content from Megascans, and this could be any other website, you know, that has 3D content, but I'll show you how to build that from scratch in Twinmotion and add it to our library. Back down here. All right, and let me just kind of navigate outside so we can put our flower out here somewhere. All right, we'll just look on the patio for now. So in order to do this, you just use the same method that you use to bring in any type of model content. So from our import panel from the tool palette, we just choose the import. Let's see, browse to where you've downloaded this. So I hope I can find this. Asset libraries, vegetation, and I brought the azalea in here, which apparently I did not bring the FBX in. Okay, well that's not good. So I'll just go to this cactus. I know I've done this one before. So with Megascans, when you download, it gives you a whole bunch of different FBX variations of that content, which is really good for using this for like augmented reality or virtual reality. I should have had this 3ds Max scene open with the statue, so I'll do that in the background while I show this. But essentially, these are different levels of detail. It's interesting because they go from 0 and then most of them go up to 5. 0 is actually the most detailed mesh object that you can download. Actually, 0 is a poly, not a mesh, but I digress. But the lower or the higher the number LOD, the lower the quality. So LOD 5 is only, let's see, in this case, 47.4 kilobytes, whereas the LOD 0 is 496 kilobytes. So right there, we know that one is smaller than the other. This one's more detailed. So I'm going to bring in the most detailed Cactus FBX. So import that in. It doesn't come in with the material, so it really doesn't matter what we set here. It says collapse by material, but you can keep the hierarchy of it if you want. For this asset, really doesn't make a difference, because when you bring it in, you do have to reassign the material. So it will put the default material on it. Okay, and once that's loaded in, let's just go right to this. So quick tip for everyone, when you import something in, it usually, or it should always go to the bottom of the scene graph unless you have another active container set up in your scene. I could have done this in a completely blank scene and it wouldn't have had all this other stuff, but it's in here, so I'm just gonna roll with it. If I click on the folder, tapping the F key on the keyboard will do a zoom extents to that object, or you can right click over it and you can do a zoom to selection. And apparently my cactus is inside the wall here, so I'm just going to kind of zoom out. There we go, and bring this outside. All right, nice placement for the cactus. So as you can see, downloaded online, has this default material. It looks pretty good. This one looks pretty detailed and realistic. It's called the Megascans Library because all of the content that's up there is derived from a team of people that goes out into the field and uses either photogrammetry or laser scanning techniques to obtain these meshes. So these are real objects, so they look realistic and they have realistic materials. So this is imported in, and that's basically all you need to do to bring in the FBX. Now, I'll isolate this one. Okay, so we're just looking at our cactus. And second step here, obviously I want to assign the material to this. So we can just do an eyedropper to select the default material. Usually what I'll do here is I'll just take this and copy it, or you can go up to your materials and create a new material if needed, but I'll just right click over. Actually, you know what? Click this button here, the plus sign, instead of duplicating it. So to create a new material, I just click, create new material. I'm going to rename this Cactus. All right, so for the cactus, I'm going to change this color of this material just to green to show you that, yes, we do have to assign it first. So I've created the new material. It hasn't been applied to the 3D asset yet, so we do have to make sure, we apply it. Now, obviously, that is not going to cut it, some neon green cactus in our scene, but I just wanted to show you that with the color that, you do have to replace that default material with this new material. And now I'll show you how to build this. So from the material, when you click more underneath the main color, I guess more settings here, we do have a texture map that we can assign to this cactus. From the download that or the asset that I downloaded from, let's see, from Megascans, I think I put the materials in here. Okay, cool. It automatically comes with these different maps. When you do your downloads from the Megascans library, they have, not only do they have the maps that I just showed you, but you can pick and choose depending on which programs you're using, whether it's 3ds Max or Twinmotion. If you needed additional maps downloaded with that object, you can pick and choose them here. Essentially what Twinmotion, the three main ones that Twinmotion uses are the albedo, the normal map, and then I didn't download it, but the glossy map, the gloss map is also a good one to download. Displacement and roughness, I guess you could probably tie roughness into the bump instead of the normal, but I find that normal gives us a little bit more variance. So when you download them, you have those options. So with the cactus, as you can see, we've got the albedo, the normal map here, and then I have this roughness. This will work fine for my glossy map, I think, as well. So anyway, I want to pull in, this is like the diffuse map. So if you've used other programs, or the image map that you're tying to the object, I'm going to pick that, click open. Now, one important thing, make sure that if you're building these libraries and you're plugging this content in, make sure that you first, or that you don't scale the object first, because then the UVW mapping gets skewed with the images that you're assigning, so you might get some weird tiling on the surface. So, all right, cool. Oops. There we go. That's starting to look better. It still has this bright green tint to it because if I back up here, the color is still green, so that's just applying a tint. But we can go back to very white there, 255, 255. I don't know if right clicking. I'm just going to make sure this is completely white so we're not getting any tint from that. There we go. And that is the image. So you can see it actually unwraps and it matches up really nicely with this asset. So even right from here, this is probably good enough for us to add to our library. But if we want to get a little bit even more detailed with the texture and everything on the surface, to tie in that map, let's back up. Oh, I'm already backed out. So I'll go to the additional settings here for the material, and we have our bump map. So if I move the bump map up and down right now, and the cactus might not be the best example of that. Can't see anything happening because there really isn't any bump map that's affecting the surface here. So just like with the color map, if you hit more settings underneath bump, it brings you to a texture map. And then we want to bring in the normal, so the surface normal map, and assign that to the object. And as soon as we do that, it takes it a second to update. See the name come in right here. My computer is chugging. There we go. Now we're starting to get some better shading and stuff. This bump right now, I feel like is probably too much. It's over exaggerated. So I'll just jump back to my settings and I'll find a good balance, probably somewhere in there, like a 50% bump is good. You know, don't want to bring it down all the way, but we want to give it some depth and some texture. So we'll give that. Now, the last thing I mentioned with the glossy map, and actually this one we might not need to do it with this at all. If you do have a surface that's like a flat surface and you want to put in some imperfections and stuff like wipe marks or, you know, maybe not dents, but like spills or stains on a surface, a good way to kind of do that with that subtleness or subtlety to that material is to tie in one of those gloss maps to the surface. One thing that the Megascans library does have, I didn't point this out before, but they have these materials that are labeled as imperfections. So there's some really cool materials that we can download. Now probably none of these would show up really well on the Cactus, but if you did have a surface like glass that you wanted to show a leak on the glass, or stains on a surface, or wipe marks like I mentioned, you can download these. And the best result I feel like is when you tie them into this reflection map, and then you'll start to see some of those imperfections. So it really kind of brings the scene to life. It makes it look more real than everything looking perfect, right? So imperfections make our renderings look realistic. But anyway, for the reflection map, I'll just tie in the glossiness, or let's see, roughness probably work fine. It's not going to really do much. So let that load. All right, still waiting. There we go. But then we can increase, maybe make that a little bit. There we go, maybe like a 30%. Cool. So now I've got a really nice asset that I want to save, and I want to be able to use this over and over again in additional projects. So from that point, there's really no point to have this container here, and I really just wanted to grab this asset that I've taken the time to apply material to and build it. Right click over that in the scene graph, rename it right here, Cactus, and just make sure got everything else right. Okay, so what I want to do now is just right click over the object, add it to my user library. And once it's done with that, so you can see even down here in my Dropbox, it is syncing this to my Dropbox, so it's making sure, or it's saving it out to that folder that I showed you earlier. And still frozen. This one's not too big, so I don't know why it's taking this long. Sometimes when we've done these marketing events, have stuff slowed down because of the go-to meeting, but anyway, all I was going to show is that will save to the library. So I was going to back out to the user library, show that that asset's saved there. Then we can drag and drop it into the appropriate folder. And that's really the whole process. So I could show you the same with materials, but basically from Megascans, if you're just downloading the materials, you can go to surfaces through here. There's all different types of great surfaces on this website that you can download, some from really clean architectural surfaces to really imperfect ground, soil, snow. So all of these are free to download with Quixel Megascans. And then building the material is the same process as I showed you with building the material for the cactus, except they're more generic for surfaces. So, okay, I'm completely frozen here, but I think that was just about all I wanted to show for building the materials and creating the user library. So if we want to now, let's open up to questions, and hopefully my computer frees up and I can kind of just finish and show you what that looks like. There is one map that I think is pretty useful with plant materials, maybe not for the cactus, but a plant material that might have a bit more translucency. We can tie in a different material. There's kind of a trick. Oh, there we go. There's kind of a trick in doing that for kind of leafy materials, but let's see. All right, user library, there it is. I'll drop it in my 3D assets, and we can look some of these. Now to place these from the object library, you just have to drag and drop them into your scene. One thing I've noticed is sometimes, and I'm not sure exactly what causes this, I'll have to look at like the position of the object, but when you drag and drop it, yeah, a lot of times they'll come in on their side like this. And it's really strange because if you actually look at the transform, the rotation is set to 180 by default, which doesn't really make sense because if I set that to 0, it just flips it the other way. So we really do want to rotate this, let's see, 90 degrees. I'm not sure why that happens, but once this is placed in your scene, now you can just use normal techniques to copy it. So if I hold the shift key down on my keyboard, we can copy it multiple times. So once you have it in the right position, you can copy that around and make instance copies and all of that. If we do want to scale it, when you scale it, it scales the material and everything with it. So that's recommended, even though, you know, when I first brought it in, now let me get out of my isolate mode. The cactus might have been too small initially, but now that I'm out of the isolate mode, we can kind of see it within the context of the rest of the scene. And you can see nicely there that I've just built up this cactus. Okay, cool. I think that's pretty much it. You know, you can jump between files. I can go to a completely new scene just to prove that this does work. And then in my user library, 3D assets, bring this cactus in. I always say the disclaimer that I am not using the best laptop here. So Lisa probably gets sick of me saying that in every presentation. We're working on it. I should be getting an updated laptop pretty soon. Yeah, it's not the best. So.
And if you are interested in the system requirements for Twinmotion, those can be found on the Imagine It Resource Center.
Yep. Yeah, the biggest thing for Twinmotion really is the graphics card. And some of the GeForce RTXs or the Quadro RTXs are great cards. And I'm actually speccing out a new machine for this purpose. And one of our contacts at Epic, they've got benchmark requirements for GPU. And the recommendation, if you go to, I think it's just passmark.com, if you're looking to invest in or see if your computer has an adequate GPU, the recommended is anything that scores 10,000 or higher, and passmark.com. The high performance recommendation is 15,000. So those are kind of your higher end GPUs. They do have them, some are ranked higher than that for laptop, but most of them are more for like desktop workstation. So if you are a visualization artist working on a tower, then you probably have a good enough GPU for this. Okay.
Okay. So, well, I do have a question. So when you're downloading the content from Quixel Megascans and those packages, the materials that come with it, can you use those on other objects once they're inside of Twinmotion?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would for like the plant material, but once they're downloaded, I could make this whole ground. So I can grab pattern here, and sure, I can replace this whole surface with the cactus map. Not that it would make sense to do that, but you can use those materials on any objects that you want.
So it's a good way to build up your library with not just objects, but materials too.
Yep. And as you can see here, I put the cactus map, and you can see that weird pattern, but also see how it still gives us that brick herringbone pattern. It's because there's also that bump map for the herringbone assigned to this.
Oh, very cool. Okay, do we have any other questions? And if anybody needs the link to get to Quixel Megascans, we can send that out with a follow-up also. So as long as you have an Epic account, you should be able to access the Quixel Megascans. If you own Twinmotion, those scans are free. If not, you can buy Twinmotion or buy Quixel Megascans, I suppose, because it does work with just about any software program, correct?
Yeah, and the licensing of Megascans is kind of unique. So if you have a purchase license of Twinmotion, then technically you're only allowed to use those objects in Twinmotion. But as you can see with the download, it's an FBX file, which is pretty universal for programs. I just don't know with incompliancy, if you were to like market something, I don't know how they would ever police that, but
I just meant for people who didn't own Twinmotion.
Yeah,
then I think that package is also available if they.
Yeah, you can download or you can pay for it separately.
Do you have a list of other places where people can access content?
So I know a lot of them from at least the way that the packages that are included in Twinmotion. Xfrog is a good one for things like vegetation. Axis or AXYZ is a good one for people. And let's see, maybe we should.
I think there's Turbo Squid.
Yeah,
Turbo Squid's another one.
Here, I've got some on my, let me just, you guys can see this. So some of the ones that I have bookmarked, yeah, Turbo Squid, Xfrog, AXYZ 3D folks. So these are some good ones. Sketchfab is a pretty cool one too. It's kind of people, not as many people know about this one. But.
Does Autodesk Seek still exist? Because if it is, I would
No.
think you'd be able to get some content there, no?
No, Autodesk Seek is now BIM object. So yeah, you could download BIM object.
Download it into Revit and then get it over to Twinmotion?
Yeah, or
it's now it's called BIM object now.
Yeah, some of the downloads on BIM object, like this little plant object here. Let's see, they might have different file formats. A lot of times they're RFA files for Revit, but I've seen DWGs and 3ds Max files that you could download. So BIM object is another good one. But there are so many out there, honestly. Like Turbo Squid's a good one, but it's a lot of paid content. Same with really a lot of these you have to pay for. Anything just like these packages or libraries. Xfrog's kind of cool because, let me go to shop here. For plant objects, the prices aren't crazy and they give you a whole bunch of different options and variations of plant materials. So I don't have this downloaded, but I do believe that it does have plugins available for different 3D programs. I don't think that Twinmotion is one, but I do know for a fact that the Twinmotion native vegetation.
It's partnered, right? They're partnered with Xfrog for their vegetation.
Yep,
I do have another question. What would you consider the best graphics card for Twinmotion and for AutoCAD? If you're running both of those.
Ooh,
are gaming cards good? RTX 380 or 390 or Quadro?
Yeah, there are, and like you mentioned, Lisa, we've got that on our website, the specs or the requirements.
Well, and I recently bought the I believe it's the Dell XPS. It's one of their gaming laptops, and I have run Twinmotion on there, and it works pretty fast. It's one of the fastest laptops I've ever had. I can look up the specifications for it. I know it's an NVIDIA graphics card. I don't remember the exact numbers for it, but Twinmotion does have specific ones listed out, so we can send those to you. Also, Gary mentions that 3D Warehouse is also a good site for content.
Yep.
Oh, thanks, Gary.
Thanks, Gary. So this Passmark has really good benchmarks for GPU. So the higher this number, the better it's going to work with Twinmotion. So the only thing, and this is what we struggle with being an Autodesk partner, is most of the programs that we work with, they aren't as demanding for real-time rendering or real-time graphics. So we have to find a balance somewhere in there, a cost to performance balance, I guess. I kind of, at least for CAD applications, I've always steered a little bit away from the GeForce cards and would prefer Quadro cards. But if you look at the prices here, the MSRP for like an RTX 8000, it's almost a $5,000 card. For the 6000s, I don't know why it was more. And these GeForces score a lot higher. They're still expensive cards, but something maybe like the RTX 3070 is a $500 card versus a $6,300 card. And really for real-time rendering, this is going to outperform the others. So it's just something that, based on your use, I would say whatever you can budget, probably a Quadro RTX. And one of the ones that I think we just spec'd out was like a RTX 4000. Still not a cheap card, but it's, maybe it was a 20. I can't remember. I have to look at my email, but it was one that scored over 15,000, which is great. Maybe it was this one, the RTX 2080, and that's a mobile version, and it's not crazy expensive. It's not listing the price here, but yeah.
Okay.
This one.
And the RAM available on those graphics card is going to make a difference also.
Yes. So the more video RAM that you have, the
Mhm.
the bigger the scenes that it can handle, basically. So the scenes I was showing you were pretty small. There's not really anything going on here. But
Well,
if you
your
had a really
graphics
large,
card is also pretty small, isn't it?
I think it's a 4 gig GP
Mhm.
or VRAM, or maybe it's 2, which isn't bad, but I'm running an M2000M, which is, I think, 3 years old, and it just is not meant for real-time graphics or real-time rendering. So right now in Twinmotion, my quality is set to medium. Really, I would prefer if I could work in a high quality, because shading, lighting, materials, everything looks better at the high quality setting. Mine just goes to medium because if I had it at high, my computer would bog down and crash constantly.
Well, and that's an important thing to note, that if you are using a laptop that doesn't quite meet the requirements, that you can kind of balance that out with that quality setting.
Yeah, and even here you see that in preferences, I mean, I'm on medium, so it's not terrible, but you can
Mhm.
even go to low. And I've mentioned this in other webcasts, but for those of you who aren't on those other ones, this is just going to determine what you see on your screen as you're working through your projects. When you actually go to output your media to images, to videos, to panoramas, or to presentation, it's going to render at the ultra high quality. So even though what you see on your screen might not be the best, it's what your computer can handle. But when you do go to render it out, it renders it at a much higher quality.
That's great. Okay, well, it looks like that is all the questions that we had today. So we can wrap this up since it's Friday, and I'm sure people are ready to get out of work and get going on the weekend. So thank you everyone for attending, and thank you, Vince, for presenting today. And this concludes today's webinar.
Thanks, Lisa.
Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone. Have a good weekend.